What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. But it's not the Dr. Vibe show tonight. It is the continuing journey called M&M Explorers, a host of epic conversations about masculinity, hosted by the Men of Masculinity Summit. And we're continuing another great topic and a new friend that I met on the first one of these when we talked about the Me Too movement. And tonight we have Tom Mack, and we're going to be talking about men. Do you have a code of honor, or do you have a code? And before we go any further, I just want to welcome Lee, Shannon, Tony, Ded, and of course, Miss Deborah to the conversation tonight. We're going to just to get to know Tom a little bit more for the first little bit of our conversation. Then we're going to open the room up. Please feel free to make comments on the Get Vocal platform. We're also broadcasting on YouTube. We're also broadcasting on Facebook. And program lead of MetaMasterly, Lee, is monitoring those other platforms. So, Tom, I'd like to first thank you for taking time from your positive, productive schedule to be with us tonight. And why don't you introduce yourself and give a little background about yourself to our wonderful audience?
Thank you, Doc. Yeah, it's definitely an honor to be here. My name's Tom Mack. I live in Sag Harbor, which is on Long Island on the eastern tip. I live in a village of 2,800 people, and in the summer it feels like it's 28 million because I live in the Hamptons. And I was born and raised here. I was one of 5 children. Way of life when I was a kid was tough, but we didn't know it. You know, we didn't know that we were poor, and we were potato farmers. And from potato farmers, we made our way. We were bootleggers, actually. People eat potatoes. We used to make vodka. So
Okay.
I can still remember walking down the street with my little red wagon making the deliveries and things. But, I grew up in a small town, and just to fast forward, simple life, hard life. Life of turmoil at first. I was on my own when I was 15 years old. I had my own apartment. Just to fast forward, I think I would bring it to 1987, Doctor. In 1987, I got sober, and I went through by that time I had 3 boys, and I was devastated. I was just totally devastated by it. And I just didn't know what to do. I was turning my life around. I wasn't a criminal, but I did some very unethical things, stupid mistakes. Had a chip on my shoulder. I had all that going on, and I was really doing it alone. When I was 15 years old, when I had my own place, as I started going through the after years, like nobody could really tell me what to do. I'm on my own, and I was lonely. I didn't realize how lonely I really was. So when I got sober, went through a divorce, I was devastated. I always wanted to have children. Like I said, I was one of 5 before. So I was. If you fast forward that to 1994, I was then divorced. I was fairly miserable because I'm not good at being a weekend dad. I'm good at being dad, So I was dating again and things like that, and my relationships just weren't working out, and I couldn't figure out why. So I was introduced to this thing called the men's weekend. So I came out of the men's weekend with, there were changes I wanted to go through. So I did the men's weekend, and boy, it was explosive because there was so much hope. I didn't know. And the most important thing I got out of it is I didn't have to do it alone anymore. I wasn't lonely anymore. Next thing you know, I had all these men in my life. So I quickly I joined the men's team, and we had weekly meetings, and then we would have division meetings with other teams, and we had from Vancouver to Toronto to the United States, we had thousands of people in our organization, and I worked my way up. I didn't quite know why I wanted to always volunteer, but I always did. And for some strange reason, my life got better. Uh, then all of a sudden, an opportunity came, and I got custody of my sons. And that was the day I really had a lot of compassion for my ex-wife. And being a single father or being a single parent is like, it's insane. And it's not good for the kids. These are just my opinions, by the way. So I stopped dating for a year, and then because I knew it was time to just concentrate on my career and my children, and start searching. If I ever wanted to be with somebody long term again, I wanted to be sure. I needed to get to know me. All the previous women I've ever went out with, they were good people. I just was picking the wrong ones. So I went almost a year without dating, and then I met this wonderful woman. To fast forward, I'm coming up on 21 years, and we had 2 more children. We have 5 children, and we have 3 grandchildren now. So,
congratulations!
I worked my way up the ranks with my organization, and I think it was a year before I did my weekend. Or right after I did my weekend, that the men's organization was so big. They were saying, hey, we need something to stick together. We need some kind of a glue to stay together. So what we ended up doing was forming this thing called a Code of Honor. And just before I get into that, it was like we were talking about the Me Too movement, and I made a comment that for me, I have no worries about the Me Too movement because I know who I am and the respect that I have for people, especially women. And I feel very comfortable with that. I've never had any incidents or anything like that. So I don't walk around in any fear of anything like that. But it really had me thinking, when I was on that show, the Me Too movement show, you gave me an opportunity to speak, and I was saying about, when men do it alone, they can be very dangerous. And we started talking about school shootings and bombings and things. They weren't done by women. They were done by men. And mainly loners in life. Men that always did it alone. So it really had me exploring a lot and thinking about how we live by a code. And I did a lot of history checking, and there's so much out there. There's so much out there. I went back to my roots to see what my people were like, and they were Code of Honor. And so what we did as an organization, which I moved into, it took a lot of years, but I became the leader of this men's organization called Matomo. I think we started with 45 men, and when I left, we were well over 500.
Wow.
And it wasn't just about the men, it was about the families. So I took on a responsibility of not just leading men, but as a leader of their families and their children, So I took it that seriously. So the Code of Honor that we developed, I'm just gonna read it off. And there's 1 or 2 or 3 that really hit home, and I'll probably talk about that just for a minute. And so the Code of Honor is commitment before ego, honor the truth, respect confidentiality, keep your word, be a 3-dimensional man, be prepared, defend humanity, always be faithful to the men, defend the code, never engage in battles with weaker opponents, fight only honorable battles, earn and honor rank, be humble, embrace all men, and be an example to children. So before I get into that, I just want to let you know I've been practicing martial arts for a while. We have what you call the dojo kun. It's the same basic code of honor. It's martial arts is never about fighting. It's about being a better person. As a matter of fact, it's very dishonorable to fight. So.
Cliff, I'm not Cliff. Tom, let me just interrupt here. I'm going to just shout out some people here. Welcome to Cliff. Welcome to ET. Welcome to Big Bad Brad. When you first had this exposed to you, having a code, what was your initial reaction?
You know, I didn't go into this men's weekend fixed. I mean, I didn't come out of it fixed. All I knew is there was hope, and I didn't have to do it alone anymore. So I decided to join what they call a point team. It's a prep. It's like a 6 to 8 week program, and then you join the division, or you join a bigger organization. So intellectually up here, I didn't think much of it, but in here, it was all there. And, there's a big difference between thinking and what your gut tells you. And my gut just told me to keep on going, and that's what I did. So when I was first exposed to the code of honor, I mean, one of my favorite ones in the code is be prepared. Be prepared for example, before I did my weekend, I'm a businessman. I would set an appointment with somebody and, say, let's just say it was 9 a.m. And I would show up at 9:40, 9:45, not respecting their time. And half the time I would probably get the job. And more times than not, I didn't. Let me put it that way. So when I joined the team, we always practiced the disciplines to team standards that we can talk about later if you want. But being prepared it taught me disciplines. And what totally changed my life was when I make a 9 o'clock appointment, I am knocking on the door at 8:59 a.m. And I am prepared and I'm ready to go. And just because of doing that, I pretty much had a 50% chance of getting the job already. Now those percentages go way up because in today's society, people think they can show up whenever they want. I'm still there at 8:59. Mm-hmm. So I pretty much not a lock on the job, but society's gotten to the point where it's diluted so much that when I show up on time, people say to me, "Thank you for coming." And I'm saying to myself, that's what I'm supposed to do. So a lot of years of training, like I did my weekend in 1994. So,
one thing I want to add on to that too is how much of a challenge was it establishing those codes with those other men initially?
Oh, it was really hard. There were consequences, and all it's a discipline and a practice like anything else. In order, change doesn't come overnight. For example, if we had a team meeting and I was late, it didn't matter what the circumstances were. First, they would say, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yes." And why were you late? And I didn't have any excuses. I was running late. So we would do something. I'd be out of what you call honor for the moment. So what I would do is clean it up. I would do 20 push-ups or jump in the river or something like that, and I'm completely back in honor. It will never be brought up again. So, people are late sometimes,
Yeah.
So, and, commitment before ego is a big one for me because there's an old saying, it doesn't matter how big your ego is, as long as your commitment is always ahead of that.
Nice.
So, people do have big ego. I might have a big ego, but I know where my commitment lies. Mm-hmm. So,
okay, just before we push further, I'm going to open up the room now. And if there are any men who have questions for Tom, or do you have some codes of honor that you live by, we'd really appreciate you coming in and just sharing them with us. And what I do here, we just have epic conversations here. So the room is open, and even if you have comments on some of the codes that Tom listed, certainly you can chime in on that. So Tom, continue. Tom, continue. I just want to open up the room for group participation.
Well, I think the most important code that we have is being an example to children.
Okay. Actually, I'm going to have you hold on it because there's a question already from Tony. Tony Davis says, would you mind talking about the difference between self-esteem and ego?
For me, it's almost all the same, except that self-esteem, been there, done that. Just my self-esteem was so low. I didn't listen. I am not a victim. I have a wonderful, wonderful life. I have a mixed family. I have a mixed interracial family: Jewish, Catholic, African American, Polish, Russian, ticklish, all of it. I am so blessed to have the family I have. So self-esteem for me was, I'll give you a perfect example. I was on my own at a young early age, and I can remember in junior high school, the kids were all going to the school dances, and they do, this giggly drinking thing before they went into the dance. Well, I drank to get drunk, and I passed out, and I never made it to the dance. I just felt like a piece of garbage, and the difference between self-esteem and ego, is the ego out of control, I would say. That's the question. Boy, oh boy, when I first got sober, I just felt like a piece of garbage. I burned some bridges. I really had to work my way back into that honor. And I felt like a piece of garbage. But as I got sober, I started reading this thing called the Big Book and all that stuff. And next thing you know, I started having some really nice days, and then arrogance came into play. I thought just because I stopped drinking that I was hot shit, and I wasn't. And my sponsor let me know that. And when he first told me, he goes, "You know what your problem is?" He goes, "You're arrogant." And I was crushed. And it was my first real serious humility builder. It was, and I've been humbled. I don't consider myself a humble man, but I've been humbled many, many times in my life to this day. So does that help with the question, or I lost your voice?
Tony is the type of individual, if he's not fully clear, he'll either type it or he will jump in. So don't worry. So I'm not worried about Tony. He's good. He's all good with Tony. Before I interrupted you, and my apologies, you were talking about the area of being a good example for children. So you were in the middle of that. So if you can come back to that, that's great. And if anyone would like to jump in, there are spaces open. So continue.
Well, being an example to children is the most important thing in my life. Being a father to 5 and a grandfather to 3. As a matter of fact, I'm a little tired tonight because I have 2 grandsons that are 6 and 7 years old, and they are a handful. They stay with us tonight. So, boy, there's a great post. Father says to his son, "Watch where you walk," and the son says, "Watch where you walk because I'm following you." So there's an old saying about being an example to children is like I have 4 boys and 1 girl. My daughter's second year in college. What I aspire to is to have my daughter, if I do due diligence and try to live my life in that realm of honor, and I do my job, my daughter should marry somebody like me, take on my standards and my uh, way of life. And my other part for my sons is to make them self-sufficient. That's my job as a father. I coach youth basketball for 23 years. I was a varsity basketball coach, but I went back down to the kids because they need us. So I walk very carefully, and I watch how I talk, and I watch how I behave around kids. So
I want to expand on this because it's a very important code in regards to being a great example to your to kids. What you've coached a lot of men.
oh
What?
yeah,
Yeah. uh,
you see wrinkles?
yes. Well, hey, hold on a second. You've got more here than I do. I don't got anything left, so you're still ahead of me, my friend. Let me ask, where do you feel, in general, men stand right now in regard to that code of being best examples for their children? Where do you feel they stand right now, just in general, with that code?
I feel like it's almost it's got a double what's it called, a double, it's a double-edged sword,
Yeah.
because as controversial as this may sound, and it's uh, there's a divorce is it's a child beatdown. It's almost considered Divorce is almost considered child abuse, because ego. Right? We talked about ego before, um, and I just lost my whole train of thought. um, what was the question? It was
Just like one of the code of honor you were talking about, and you feel it's one of the most important ones is being
right,
a good example for your children. And
right.
just because you've coached so many men, mentored so many men, I just like to
Oh
get
yeah.
your thoughts right now. What do you feel? Where does that stand, you think, with men in general these days? That code.
Well, see, there's many men that come in either divorced or about ready to get divorced, and a lot of men come back from the men's weekend and they were getting ready for a divorce, and they come from the weekend and said, "I can't do this because it's not about me. It's about the third entity. The third entity is the child, and it's not about me. It's not about my wife. It's about the children. That's what's going to keep the bond together. I mean, I'm still madly in love with my life, but my wife. But what keeps our bond and our strength strong together is our children. Um, and a lot of men get and women get trapped in that. This is like women are the real special. I mean, let's face it. Women usually end up with custody of the children. I don't want to get political about it. It's just a fact, and many of rightfully so. Those men I was talking about that narcissists and loners, they just run off with another woman or something, and they forget about their kids, and and women are really great at being moms, but they're not good at being dads. The children need a masculine presence and that feminine presence to, I'm going like this because in the middle of what I'm rubbing is my children. They need a little bit of masculine, they need a little bit of feminine, and even listen. There's a lot of gay couples out there that adopt children, and that is so honorable of what they do. But they need to know their place in their relationship. If you have, I have two brothers that were gay, for example. If you have two men that are very masculine, they're just going to punch each other out all the time. So they have to know their place in their relationship. So, and that's how they become great parents. Once you get that chemistry, it's, parenting is hard. You know that. I mean, it's just really hard in normal circumstances. So when you're divorced, you really, part of the code of honor is you really got to put your ego aside as a man You can only control what you can control, and just be an example. You know, I've seen many marriages repaired because of the work we do, and I've seen some fall apart. And there's some marriages where a couple does not have children and they get divorced, and that's fine because it just wasn't meant to be. But there weren't children involved.
Right.
So.
Okay. A certain gentleman named Lee has a question saying, "Is arrogance ego?"
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's like, oh, my stuff doesn't stink today. I mean, I have a special relationship with Lee, and we have a trusting relationship to where he can call me up and tell me, like when I'm leading a call, when I was a leader, Lee's the type of, we need men like Lee and other men to, he'll call me up and say, Mac, I thought that was a little arrogant what you said. I thought you're a little bit full of yourself. What's going on? What's going on for you? You seem out of kilter. So, absolutely. Does Lee have a follow-up to that, or?
Well, if he does, he'll either come on screen or type it out. Like to welcome Kinte to the platform, and so people are jumping in and out. That's a good thing. I would like to know, you've talked about being a good example to children, the thing of being on time. What was at least another one that was like in your top three?
Oh,
and you can share any of them because I think they're all good conversation points.
Well, there's two of them. I'm fighting with myself for a moment.
While you're thinking, ET is saying here, I say uneducated mind always will be arrogant.
Can you expand on that? Because I have a phrase called, I always tried, my context when I led the men was to always come from a beginner's mind. That way you always stay a student. So I'm a little unclear about the context.
I think what he's trying to say is that, and I'm just paraphrasing. I'm not going to represent him fully. That one that isn't educated in an area can lead to arrogance, but one can be educated and arrogant too, can they not?
Sure. I mean, I think one of the reasons that I was so arrogant is because I was doing it alone, and that was my defense mechanism. I know everything, that was I found out later on in life that was fear, of not knowing the answers. So I would just make stuff up and just come from very opinionated, non-factual garbage, and of course. So, be humble. It's like, that's one of the, being humble is, I think that's, I was saying earlier that I don't consider myself to be a humble man by any means, but I've been humbled. I think humility, for me, will come about 5 minutes before I die. It's like, I just love everybody, and see it, but it's a daily battle to stay humble, especially if you're getting to not so much a confrontation, but
okay. You've asked for Mr. Lee to clarify himself, and he's here to clarify himself.
Hi, Mr. Lee.
Hey, Tom. Hey, one thing I know about you is like, and I haven't heard you say, but this is something I observe of you that I think, is part of your code is you care. One thing I always get from you is you care. And I just wanted to, it's not something you said. Where does that fit in your life?
Oh my, that's such a great question because because it falls right into competition. Competition, like there's two ways that men compete, right? With each other as a team or against each other, right? So I've got my life to a point where I just root for men to win. I will do anything to help a man achieve an area of his life that he wants to be successful in. And I think Lee knows about that. He might be able to expand a little bit, but I've always backed the man.
Well, before Lee gets to that, how did you get to that point? What made you get to that point where you say, I just want men to win?
It was a lot of discipline. It took a lot of, I want to say courage to stand in the circle of men that tell you the truth of what they see in you. And it doesn't have to be, it's not brutal and it's not personal. This is just what I see in you. And we used to do an exercise one time. It's kind of important that I'm bringing this up because it was like, we learned from our mistakes, right? We had like a division meeting. There were like 45 men there. And so I had to stand out near the water, and each man would come and whisper in my ear what they did not like about me. You know, there's something in all of us that we don't like about somebody. But not that we don't like them, but there's something that we don't like about them. So these men were telling me stuff, and I'm sitting there like, I was so depressed. And it was like, we waited a week, and we should have done it that night. And so, okay, Mac, get back down to the water. Now the men will come and tell you what they admire about you. And they would come and whisper in my ear what they admired about me. But it was like, we should have done that the same night, because I'm walking around the whole week going, oh, man. It's like, but to be able to let that in. Lee, you and I have had private conversations, and you've told me things that you've taught me. I was your leader, and you're telling me things that I have learned, and to try to, it's about growth. It's about discipline and growth, and don't defend yourself. Try to let in what somebody's saying. And it's a very difficult thing to do from my background, you know. For a lot of men, it's a lot easier, but, you know, for me, it was, I learned that I don't have to defend myself. This is what somebody is truly seeing in me, you know?
Yeah, and it's coming, the context to that, Tom, it comes from a place of, I care about you enough to say something that somebody else wouldn't say. Like, if it was a person that you worked with on your job, they wouldn't come close to saying it because they wouldn't want to risk anything. They wouldn't want to risk hurting your feelings. But I think the context in which we have our relationship is like, we could say what needs to get said because I care about you and you care about me. And I've got, I got a lot of lessons from you too, in working underneath you, doing the work. You got a chance to see me at times of stress, and in those times of stress, different parts of my personality would show up, and you point that out. So those were real gifts for that cause lots of self-development.
And, there's nothing more precious and joyous in my life to see men win. And that was a process because, when I was out there before I did my weekend, I was out drinking and partying, doing this and doing that. Men were out there just doing stuff behind my back. And it was hurtful stuff, and it was just like mind blowing. So to take that resentment and to turn it into genuine care for my men, it took me 11 years to tell my men's team something very personal that happened to me when I was a boy. And we had an offset of like 250 men leave one time, 250 men, and I led the day off, and I put it out there, something very deeply personal, and how I have my freedom because the men helped me reach my freedom with it. And because I put it out there, I had men coming up to me after I spoke who had been through the same thing and said, I'm having a really difficult time with this, and I'm glad you said what you said. Can we have a talk? And I said, absolutely. So to be able to help men achieve things, it's like, you know, even in companies. I mean, I've mentored men in business, and they've become bigger than me. It's like, where's my commission, bro? You know, it's like, so I really get a kick out of it.
I'm going to put Lee on the spot a little bit because he's here. What is one of your codes?
I don't. Wow, that's a good question. My code mostly is around family. It's taking care of, protecting them, and watching them and providing for them. Probably my code that drives me. For Deb, I'll just keep an eye on her. From that, my wife. I'll keep an eye on her, and she's got a huge streak of integrity, and she will honor her word until she fails and falls on her face. And sometimes I'm there just to tap her on the shoulder and remind her that, to check in with her health and just making sure my kids are healthy and on the right spot. So that's the primary code that drives me.
No, I appreciate you just being straight up with it. And if there are especially other men here, that either you can type in the side, or I'd love you to come on and say, what are one of your codes that you live by? It'd be great to hear, because there's no right or wrong. It's just something that you live by. And why do you live by that code, or one of the codes that you live by? It's always important. While we wait for someone to chime in, if they're going to chime in, Tom, you had some other ones on your list. I'd like you to pull one or two other ones off your list if you could, please.
Keep your word. My word is all I have, and keep your word is not a intellectual code. Keeping my word is an action. I have to be very diligent. I have to be, it does include a little bit of humility, honesty, integrity, commitment, sacrifice. All I have as a man is my word. If I don't have my word, I don't have anything. I think I was mentioning, I know Lee, he's my Facebook friend. I'm running for the Board of Education.
Mm-hmm.
We have the elections next month. I threw my hat in the ring. All I have is my word, I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve my community. And it's funny living in a small community. I'm going to learn things about myself that I never knew, because, there's some people that just don't like you out there, and I have no control of that. I've gotten to a place in my life with the men, especially. They taught me, like, I really, really do not care what you think of me. I don't. But what's important to me is what I think of you. And I don't have an enemy in the world. I don't have a resentment. Not at the moment, anyway. But, I don't have any control of who feels anything about me. But I do have control about how I feel about you. And that's what's important. That's how my head hits the pillow just right every single night. I hit the pillow. I lay next to my wife. She's the last thing I see when I go to bed, and she's the first thing I see in the morning. And I can live with that, knowing that I don't have any resentments toward anybody, even the people that don't like me for whatever reason. So that's an important bridge to cross. So.
And Lee is saying, Rodin, if you want to come into the room, please join us. All you have to do is click on grab this spot and allow the use of the camera and the microphone. I want to ask Tom, do you feel it's more difficult now for men to have a code compared to when you started adopting a code?
Yes. Yes, because unfortunately, we're hitting the. This is again, it's just my opinion, doctor. But I'm very observant, and I try to be, I think we're hitting like the baby boom generation of single parenting, and like in the majority of cases, women have custody of their children, which is, they're great moms. It's like you can never criticize anybody for being a single parent, but we're hitting like a really peak with single parenting where that child didn't even get enough of good, nice vibe from his mom, or good discipline and vibe from his dad. So if you don't have that, it's just going to get one side. And these I don't want to say millennials because they're great kids. My daughter's in the second year of college. Those kids are awesome. But at the same time, today's men are acting like boys. And I noticed that there's dads out there that are, I don't want to be controversial, they're mothering their children. It's like, hovering, the term umbrella parenting.
Yep.
I need to let my own sons fail. Listen, I've made 1,000 mistakes as a father. I've made 1,001 good choices as a father, but I let them fail to a certain point. I'm on my last son in school, for example. He's one of the best runners. He's a cross-country runner. All I can do right now with him is hold him accountable to what he wants. I don't coach him. I am an athlete. I do not coach him. I don't know the fundamentals of cross-country, but I do hold him accountable to what he wants. And sometimes it's like, you said you want this, get your ass out there and go, and which I don't have to do often because he's just so locked in. He's very committed. So, a lot of guys grow up, they don't have that energy that me and my wife bring, to our kids. I mean, there's a million kids that do, but just to really put it into perspective for you, doctor, the average till death do us part with marriage lasts under 5 years now. And that is devastating to children.
Wow.
So we're hitting the peak of that. So it's getting harder. So it really makes our work tougher, but it makes our work admirable, honorable. We're willing to fight to the death to save those young men and helping them be successful in what they want to achieve in their lives. All I can do is when we get young men that come into our circles is, hey, I'm 61, you're 35. I don't want you to live my standards. I want you to live your standards, and I'm going to hold you accountable to what you want. I want to help you become the man that you want to be. I'm not going to sit there and try to control who you are. So,
Hey, Tony.
Hey, Tony.
Hey. I just thought I'd hop in and just mention what Tom's talking about. What Tom's talking about is part of my code, of my personal code. It goes back to when I was a teenager, and people in my family encouraged me to read How to Win Friends and Influence People. And the thing I learned best of how to win friends and influence people is a few things: is learn how to find yourself, learn how to find the best in yourself, learn how to find the best in others, and learn how together you can bring out the best in other people. And that, just been my code all my life. Is I learned how to find myself. I learned how to find the best in myself. Even when I'm at my worst, I find the best in myself. I'm constantly finding the best in others, even people I can't stand. I find the best in them. and I'm like, look, it's a win-win situation here. I can help you. You can help me. If we find we can't, then we just leave each other alone and go about our business. But it's just the code for me. It's just find the best of myself, find the best of others, and figure out how together we can make things better for everybody.
So I have a question for you, Tony.
So yeah,
how do you go about finding the best in yourself?
Well, that is an interesting question, and the best way that I have done that is, the best way I've done it is, one, I found the worst in myself. That's the thing, is I have found the worst in myself, and I've learned that, okay, this is the worst. I need to improve on things. I've learned to constantly grow, to constantly think, to constantly critically think about things, to constantly question everything, to constantly study, and to figure out how to make things better for myself and everybody else, and so forth. Another way that I've figured out the best in myself is being quiet. And being quiet and learning to shut up when I need to shut up, and just kind of like, okay, listen to what's going on, observe, don't jump in. That's pretty much just best that I've learned how to learn the best of myself.
Are you on a men's team? Do you have men in your life?
I do have men in my life, both on and offline. One in particular is a good friend of my family. And not only just is he my computer guy, he's also my spiritual go-to. Hey, I need help with this spiritually. Can you pray with me about this? Can you talk with me about this? Can you let me cry with you for a few minutes? And then it's just, other men I have in my life are my nephews. Even though they're teenagers, they are men, and I'm kind of a mentor to them. They're my mentors. There's lots of older people in my area that I live in that are very supportive of me. If it's just a thing to somebody to listen to, they're very supportive. Now, as far as a men's group, no, I'm not involved in a men's group.
Yet.
Well, he is right now.
That
was my
matter of fact. There's one of my nephews right there.
Okay, I'm just gonna pass over. Welcome, someone that's a new friend to me, a gentleman named Roden, and obviously you have a good relationship with Lee. And welcome to the conversation. How are you this evening?
I'm very well, Dr. Vibe. How are you?
Outstanding, and better because you're here.
And it's good to see Mr. Mack. I watched the call with Leung the other night, and I watched the replay of it, and I saw that Mac was going to be on this call. I'm like, I haven't called the man in months and months and months, so let me jump on and say hello.
My brother from another mother.
Absolutely, my friend. Thanks.
So, Roden, how important is a code in your life?
Oh, a code is huge. The code of honor that Mac went through is just instrumental in my life. There's other things that men have in their lives, like that are like codes. Tom talked about his family, and one of the ones that I think of often is that I'm a man who takes care of his family. And that is just, really number one for me, whether that's like just going out and doing my job, whether that's just taking care of my family and just making sure they're having fun. They're on vacation this week, and, some families are going to Florida and some families are going to Disney World, and, we're here in Vermont watching the snow melt. But it's almost there. And, like just last night, I was super busy and my family called up and my wife called up and said, hey, we're going to go to dinner and we're going to go see a movie. Can you break away? And I was like, yeah, I can do that. I didn't have time, but it was like super important. I want to be there for my family. And my wife actually, we had dinner and she said, you don't have to go to this movie. I know you don't like these kind of movies. It was like an action movie, and the movie's Shazam, so she's like, you don't have to go. And one of the girls, the 11-year-old, said, no, I think you have to go. And then the 14-year-old did the same thing. Like, no, you have to go. And I was like, all right, I definitely have to go. So I went to the movies. Just being there to take care of my family is huge.
So for you, Roden, how does having a code make your life better?
Oh, I mean, knowing that I'm doing the right thing. Started this call out talking about self-esteem and ego. And, I wake up feeling better about myself, knowing that I'm doing good work, that I'm holding to my codes, whatever they may be, taking care of my family, being honorable in business, whatever it may be. Being accountable for that on a daily basis is huge. And it just makes you a better man. And, you don't have to be lying to yourself and be making things up and backtracking and, beating yourself up over things. It's huge. And I have men in my life, I am on a team, and having those men and being able to bring this stuff to them when I'm having some chinks in my armor and I need some help, or just when I want to bounce something off of them, I have that. And, by doing that and learning these lessons every day and meeting with my men, I get to walk through life and not have as many dings as I used to. Just be stronger. And yeah,
I'm gonna continue with you, Frank. I just want to shout out some things. I think Tom, your dad is on.
Who, me?
Tom, your daughter is on and saying hi, Dad. Woohoo! Or is that Roden?
Sarah's on there too.
Is it my daughter? My daughter Sarah? Yeah, she's an art
Yes,
school.
she's on there. She was on Facebook, and now she's on Get Vocals. That's good. Welcome to Bobby. I want to continue a bit with you, Roden, if you don't mind. What was your life like before you had a code, and what brought you to having codes?
Woo!
I'm gonna step so long. 30 seconds, Doctor.
Yeah.
No. I can listen to you. I just gotta let the cat in and stuff. So.
No problem. Go on. Go ahead.
I thought you were giving me 30 seconds. I was like, well, I hope you got a little bit more time than that.
No. But we got more time than that. It's all good.
No, I started getting involved with these men back in 2006. And, before that time, I was not as honorable a man since I've done the work with these men and been around these men. Just how I am with women and how I am in relationship with women. And I just was never strong in that way. I didn't know how to take care of myself. I wasn't self-sufficient. Couldn't stand on my own 2 feet. And, just was not good with business and, just like from one woman to another woman, and just life was kind of messy. And, since doing this work, starting doing this journey in 2006 with a lot of these men, with Rosen and with Mac and with Young and all these men, I've just learned so much to, just taking my game to such a higher level. Nice. And I've just gotten successful in many ways. I've just got remarried 2.5 years ago to a lovely woman. She's a school teacher. I have 2 stepdaughters, and I have a good job and, real estate. So life is really good. Lovely home in Vermont, just living the dream. And, by showing up and suiting up and being accountable to men like Mac and, telling the truth, I get to not make some of the mistakes I used to make before.
Excellent.
Man, we've been through some, Doctor, the other thing is, fight only honorable battles.
Yes.
And we fight for a lot of people. And me, Lee Young, and Roden, and hundreds and hundreds of other men have done. We do that. It's an honor to, Mark and I know each other very well. And what have we?
I have a question. I want you, what in your, each one of you, and maybe you have the same answer, what is an honorable battle for a man?
Honorable battle for a man.
Or for you, maybe just put it for each one of you. What's an honorable? Because I don't want you to speak for all men, but what's an honorable battle? What does that look like for each one of you? Because it's part of, I'm sure it's part of both of your codes.
I'll go first, Mac, if you want.
Oh,
An honorable battle for me is being amongst a man amongst my team members of other men and holding them accountable. Like being compassionate but ruthlessly compassionate and just trying to help them find their truth. So that's an honorable battle for me. Another honorable battle is in work. I'm in the real estate business, and there's a lot of there's some unscrupulous people, there's some good people, there's some bad people, there's people in between. And, just fighting for my clients to find their home or to sell their home when there's people who are maybe trying to take advantage of a situation or somebody else in my business who's trying to take advantage. That's an honorable battle. It's like doing the right thing. And if I'm not sure what to do, I'm really grateful that I have men I can call. I can call a man like Mac. I have plenty of people I even have some women who I can call, some graduates of the Women's Weekend who works for my office. I have people I can call and just bounce things off of and fight these battles on a daily basis.
Tom.
One of my one of the battles that I fought for, and I still do in different ways, but I coached basketball for youth for 23 years. And it's funny, during the Michael Jordan era, everybody wanted to be like Michael Jordan. And it's like when you coach, I coached on a high school level, but I found more of a challenge and more joy working with kids because they're so selfish when they first start. It's like, I'm going to be like Michael Jordan. All they do is shoot the ball and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I get to teach them, when they first come to me, they're so selfish and it's all about them, and boy, by the end of the season, they become a team, and it's a lot of work. I'd say, hey, Johnny, you know why people clap? People clap because the other kid made the basket? Because you made a nice pass. Sometimes the pass is recognized more than the basket. Yeah. And they start saying, oh, okay. And they find out that it's not just about them. There's a unit out there. There's 5 kids out there. And they take those life lessons. And, boy, I sure don't want to come from arrogance. There's a man, I did my first coaching job in 1983.
Wow.
This gentleman's mom just passed away. He's got to be like 40, 39, 38, 39 years old. His mom just died, and I extended my condolences. And he said, "Thanks, Coach." That's going back to when he was a child. So I fight for children. I fight for children a lot, and with men, a lot of times fighting honorable battles. Figuratively, I'm gonna pull you up and make you successful whether you like it or not. And sometimes that requires me to roll up my sleeves and put it into a 350-degree vegetable oil that you fry potato chips with. And I'm gonna go down to that hot grease. So I'm gonna sacrifice my arms. I'm gonna pull you up and make you more successful than me. That's an honorable battle.
Love it.
And that's what I've really dedicated my life to, and in a lot of ways. So,
how important is it for both of you to, as much as possible, show the value of codes for our next generation of men?
Well, for me, it's by example. I don't go around preaching the code. I try to live the code to the best of my ability, and I try to conduct myself that way. I think that's the best way to teach sometimes, just to be an example. Um, just don't get sucked into all the BS, and just keep my dignity about myself. Even if I get irritated or anything, just um, try, just try to be an example.
Rhoda?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll agree with that. It's so much about being an example. I have 2 sons, I have 2 grandsons, and now I have 2 stepdaughters. And it's not so much as just teaching. It really is just about being an example and trying to suit up and show up and do the work, and show them how to do things. Just teach them, how to dig the well, whatever it may be. I have a man who I work with, Pollock, and he helps me pick up cars, and he's very smart. He's like a master at buying and repairing cars, and he helps me with my little fleet of vehicles that I have. And he actually helped my son a couple of weeks ago. He needed to get a registration for a vehicle. He was not living in Iowa. He moved. We had a 3-way call with myself here in Vermont, Pollock in Massachusetts, and my son in D.C., and somehow we magically got my son's car re-registered in Iowa when he was sort of here in DC. But he showed us how to take care of business. He wasn't taking care of things, and he had let something fall to the wayside, and he wasn't being a big boy. And by bringing that man in, we showed him how to do it, and it was a great lesson for him. How to just take care of business and not let things just float around and get you into trouble. Like sort of clean things up, so to speak.
Hey, doctor, if Sarah's still on, hey Sarah, jump in the room.
Sarah's here. It's
Sarah,
up. It's her call. It's her call.
I'm gonna jump off. Thank you very much, man. Matt, great to see you, my brother.
Don't be a stranger, and all the best.
Thanks, Dr. Vibe. Peace.
Right back at you. Sarah's saying 1 minute, and we do have 2 open spots here right now. So Sarah's going to be coming in. That means we still have an open room. I'm speaking that someone like a Bobby or a Cliff or a Brad or may want to jump in. We're waiting for Sarah to jump in. I believe it means other. Okay, so we're up in comments here. And again, thanks for everyone for stopping by. Many of you have been on for most of this conversation, so we appreciate it. We don't take it for granted at Men of Masculinity. And Sarah is here.
Hello.
Hey, Sarah, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm happy because you're happy.
Yeah, I'm a little sick, but I'm happy.
You know what? It's in the past.
Yeah.
So this is my baby girl, Doc. She's the only daughter I have, and
Yes, I am.
she has 3 older brothers and 1 young brother. So I don't have a problem, guarding her against any boys or men or anything like that. No.
Well, if she's got your blood, I'm sure she's good on her own. She's good on her own. She's
so proud of her. She's got incredible roommates in college. And
where are you going to school?
I go to Maryland Institute College of Art in Baltimore.
Wow, fabulous!
Yeah.
Fabulous. How has your father's, and he's not perfect, none of us are, how has your dad's adhering to his codes made your life better?
Well, I think just in general, like being the only girl out of 4 boys, even growing up with my mom and dad being both in the men's and women's meetings, like that's what I grew up on. Right. So I call a lot of the other men, like I was just telling my boyfriend earlier, like all these men and women are like my second moms and dads, or like I have like thousands of moms and dads out there, but specifically with my dad and how he is with my brothers and me, it really like shaped, I think, all of us into like who we are and what our morals are and like what's important to us in our own lives.
Wonderful. You proud, Dad?
Oh, geez, you know, you know, I mean, we were talking about balance before, you know, of parenting, and my wife is an artist, and Sarah she goes to Micah. She got some nice scholarship money. She's got many awards to help pay for.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And she's a free thinker. I wish your roommates were with you because they are the most incredible people in the world. Those kids, they are going to push the old people away, and they are going to take this country over and make it. You want to talk about making America great again? You wait. These kids, they're phenomenal. They all love each other. And, I couldn't, I'm always proud of my daughter, but she's a free thinker. She has her own opinions, and that's, it's important that, help shaping her is one thing, but to shape her to become the kind of woman to have her own thinking, her own mind, her own opinions, and develop that. And, she's making a difference in the world. So, just by doing those things.
Nice.
So.
Thanks.
Well, on those beautiful words and that wonderful smile, I think we're going to start winding down. So, Tom, as we start winding down our conversation tonight, what are some closing thoughts you have for men out there? All right, take care, Sarah. Thanks for stopping by.
Bye.
We'll talk.
Take care. That's wonderful. That is beautiful.
That is my baby girl.
I can tell by even if I had you on mute, I could tell just by your body language. I could tell. And it's a living example of the codes you live by.
Or, hey, listen, I make a lot of mistakes. I still make mistakes, but you know what? I try to make the little ones.
There you go. So as we close down here, what are your final thoughts when it comes to men having a code?
It's the most important thing that men could do is to be together, especially today. Today you have, we talked about fatherless or motherless young men, and there's so much working against them right now. That you've got opioid crisis. We have a drug crisis here. All those things. Men need mentors. And I think that they are our future. And we need to mentor them into becoming the man that they want to be and live an honorable life because they are the future. So I don't care if he's 10 years old, 20 years old, 30, 40, 50, it's never too late. And help these younger men discover the greatness, which I personally think every man on this planet possesses. There's some kind of a greatness in every single one of us. And there's such a contribution, and we need to get that out of them. We need your greatness. And we cannot control these men. All we want to do is guide them to be the man that they want to be and live an honorable life.
Wonderful. That's fantastic. If people want to reach out to you, Tom, what's the best way? Because there may be some people here or watching it live on the replay that may want to reach out to you. Are you open for people to reach out to you?
All the time. I'm on Facebook. It's you're going to find a few Tom Mack. I'm Tom Mack, M-A-C. I am on Facebook. I live in Sag Harbor, New York. You can either PM me or friend request. And if there's anybody out there right now watching this that is, we were talking about self-esteem and ego and all that. If there's any man that really wants to talk, just to talk, you can always get me on my cell. I don't care what time it is. I know what it's like to feel alone, and it's horrible. I'm going to put out my phone number if that's okay.
Absolutely. You're more than welcome to.
For any man or woman, that would ever want to talk, I would direct a woman to a woman, because I know absolutely nothing about women's problems. My cell number 24/7 is 516-848-9705. And always available to listen. Not,
Okay. And I've just typed it in the comments.
I'm also on Instagram, but I'm not a big Instagram. It's Tom Mac Inc. TOMMACINC.
Do you have what about email address?
Oh, yes. My email address is tommacinc@aol.com. So it would be TOMMACINC@AOL.com.
Wonderful.
I've been sentenced to AOLs for 19 years. So.
No problem. They were the original dial-up people, my man. So there you go. Did you remember that CD that used to get in the mail?
Yeah.
Now that's a collector's item. If there's anyone who has one of those, you got a real collector's item.
Right. It really is. So.
No problem. And Bobby says, wow, great love. He loved AOL. I am Dr. Vibe. I am the host of these epic conversations called M&M Explorers. If you want to find out more about men and masculinity, I'm going to put the Lee Rosen's contact information here via email. I hope I get it right. Oh, I didn't get it right. I have to still type it out. So it's Lee at menandmasculinity.com. If you want to find out anything more about the organization. And actually, Lee and I were discussing something earlier on this week, Lee. I think we need to make it happen, but I'm not going to talk about it here because I don't think you probably bounced it off the rest of the core team. We have our next conversation scheduled coming out for 8 p.m. Eastern time on Monday evening with a gentleman named James O'Rourke.
So, my boy.
So, please follow Men and Masculinity on the Get Vocal platform or via Twitter, and keep updated. We have a lot of epic conversations coming out. So I'd like to thank everyone who stepped in: Lee, Tony, Deb, of course, Kinte, Brad, Shannon, Cliff, Bobby, Sarah from Maryland, Latina, NYC. Thanks for stopping in. And Dre dropped in for a little bit. And if E.T., thank you for stopping by. Monique stopped by for a bit. If I forgot anybody, it's because of my head, not my heart. So thank you so much. For those who are celebrating, happy Easter. For those who are celebrating, happy Passover. And everyone else, happy every day. Be well and keep the faith. Thanks for watching. Good night.